Yeah, we've been like hearing about it, but mostly it's just people talking on Twitter, which is a great time for me to have left Twitter. But then I get all of the information from like other people sourcing like TikToks and Twitter threads and such. And nothing makes me laugh more. He was on a podcast that is known for being edgy and offensive. And then everybody who knows the 1975 and considers themselves like leftist and progressive and woke and all that kind of got really upset to find out that maybe this guy that they're a really big fan of his music doesn't share exactly every single opinion they have. And they started to get really pissed off at him publicly on all of their social media. And Matty basically said, I don't care.
What even was this podcast? Because I thought most people are still like upset about like the shows he was playing. Because a lot of the stuff that I've seen is just like, look at what he did at this show. And I'm like, okay, how is this different than literally anything he's done in the summer?
Yeah, it wasn't.
That's why I was confused. I'm like, are we still mad about stuff that happened in the summer? We have just not moved on from it.
We are mad. We're mad in general. I'm just going to
I know you're mad that you didn't get a kiss from him. And that's okay.
Well, that's part of the shit. That's part of the thing that people are mad about. Matty Healy is doing things that are pissing people off, and then people are getting pissed off. And that's basically the story. The podcast is, and I don't know the Adam Friedland show that well, so I'm not going to speak to it too much about like, this is the story of what happened on the podcast. I didn't listen to it. And I've heard a couple of clips. But Adam Friedland used to be part of a podcast with another guy who I do know, a comedian named Stavros. And the podcast was called Come Town. So, I mean, you're not going to get high quality elite content from Come Town.
Guys, like, be realistic of what you're listening to and what
nobody looked
people
that
are
up,
on.
Nobody spent 5 minutes to go, who the fuck is Adam Friedland? And was he ever on a podcast called Come Town?
Oh, okay. You have to like listen and watch it to get the full context. Otherwise, you're just getting a snippet that's literally a minute long.
A lot of people said, yeah, I tuned out because, I couldn't do it. It's like, yeah, it probably isn't for you. Which fine. There's like a sense that like, if somebody that I love is not attributing their personality and behavior to the way that I believe that they should, now we have an issue. And that turns into, I need to make sure that everyone else knows that I don't like this person for this behavior, so that I am now getting credit points or internet points for telling everybody this is how I feel about this guy. And I don't really think that that has done anything at all. Since this all came out in 1975, announced like their biggest show they've ever done, and it's sold out in a day. So no one cares. Like I'm saying, like, the majority of the internet is not on Twitter, so they're not checking this shit, and then they buy tickets to their show. This is all like just sort of like manufactured fake outrage at somebody who never really like was going to ascribe to like the way you see the world, and then everybody's just like, I'm mad now anyway. Buy tickets.
I mean, we've already talked about like his antics and what he's done too. Like, he's just somebody who is going to do things to like just get the extension.
Yeah. He's just a guy, dude. He's just a guy. He's a weirdo little guy. Matty Healy sparks backlash over interview that mocks Japanese, Hawaiian, and Scottish people. I can deal with Asian hate, but how could you do that to the Scots?
Brian is joking, guys.
I don't think that we could put Scottish people in mocking Japanese and Hawaiian people and be on the same level.
Like, they said we need to cover every ethnicity here, so people will be upset about it regardless.
This is the UK's independent. Like, also, this all broke on my birthday, so I thought that was pretty fun. I was like, thank you.
Oh, wow. I'm so happy for you.
To me.
I love that that's the big news of the day for you, Bessie, on your birthday.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was on this podcast. During the conversation, Healy, Adam Friedland, and Nick Mullen appeared to make a number of derogatory remarks about women, as well as mocking the indigenous Scots language and Chinese and Hawaiian accents. I'm sorry. I still think it's funny to say, you mock the indigenous Scots language. Like, what?
That's a real way to phrase it. That's a real choice way to phrase it. An
I, as a
editor.
British person, will not allow it to stand. We cannot make fun of our friends to the north. How dare they do this to our very close and good friends who we've done nothing wrong to in the time in which the four kingdoms came together to create the United Kingdom? We shan't be allowing this type of behavior to stand. We will not build the wall with the north. We shan't do it. We as British people will stay friends, and we will cancel one of our own if necessary.
That was so inspirational, bestie.
Making a thread of my least favorite moments from the Adam Friedland podcast.
Damn.
It's very much just like an edgy podcast. People just kind of
Edgelord.
making shitty comments for the sake of getting attention. And here we are talking about it.
I was about to say, here's the thing too. If people are gonna wonder like why Matty Healy is or how he is on this like edgelord podcast, think about that people will end up on these random ass podcasts, usually because they listen to them and they tell their PR people, hey, I want to be on like this podcast they listen to. Can you reach out to them and ask? And if it's Matty Healy, you're going to say yeah, even if it has like absolutely nothing to do with you.
The group later joked about women's periods and suggested that the moon controls menstrual cycles. It's so funny that women get fucked up by the moon, Friedland said, adding, meanwhile, we went there. Men!
Oh my God.
Healy laughed along with the comments and added, fuck yeah, fucking two, right? I'm sorry.
Get
that
it in
is
there.
funny. That's an actual funny bit. Like, it is very clear that no one actually believes what the fuck they're saying. That is ridiculous. Men went to the moon. Women can't because of the control and the space.
Gravity.
Women can't go
In our
to space.
periods.
Yeah. So if you are giving that like the least charitable reading of his behavior and his conversation on that podcast, then you're going to just look up everything else that this person has ever done recently. And then it's things like why the 1975's Matty Healy did a Nazi salute on stage. Let's just watch this video super quick and you'll see that it's because he's making a reference to Kanye in 2023, and the Nazi salute has more to do with the fact that Kanye is a Nazi and not the fact that he is a Nazi, but now turning every time that he does it into that. It's an interesting way to get even our clicks on that article.
I think that because like he's such like a weird performance artist, and I know that we've talked about this like one-on-one and like with other people since like the summer when he was being chaotic, is that like this is just him doing things that are probably not like, you know, overall tasteful, but he's doing it because he thinks it's like a weird art house performance piece. Like that's what he is. Like if you ever watch like an art house film or talk to anyone who's like into art house, they're all fucking weird.
My overall thesis of why this is happening is because I believe that he has a theory. He has thoughts on how the internet outrage culture operates and how people get sort of obsessed with everything that you do. And they start to look for evidence as to why you're like this. And they start to create a narrative about the person for the things that they say and do on the internet, in public and whatever. And I think he's trying to like point at it a little bit. I would never say that Matty Healy like has a strong, like, you should do this, not type behavior. Like, I think that he knows all the shit that he's doing. He was kissing fans during the summer, at their summer tour. And a lot of people were like, yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. Let's let it happen. And it became such a routine that they did. But then he would like say things during the show where he's like, yeah, they're saying it's like a power dynamic. And they're saying that like, it, you know, without consent and like all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I think that he's kind of pointing out like how the world has evolved into it. Not really saying one thing or the other about it, just saying this is where we are now, that I have to check the ID of somebody in the audience before I physically touch them with their consent. Like, yep, you do. Why does everybody think that's fucking weird now? I don't get it. Like, we know we want that to happen. Why do we think it's weird? Why do we think that like him pointing out the power dynamic isn't like kind of making a comment on the power dynamic?
It's making a larger statement, especially because we don't hear too many artists. Like you see artists on like Twitter or like Instagram be like, yeah, we think that's fucked up, but then don't really show it or like talk much about it outside of it. But then you have Matty Healy actually like kind of making a point, but it's in like a like not really sarcastic, but in like a turnabout way that it's like a parody of itself. It's satire. And unless you understand that that's literally Matty Healy of a man is just satire and parody personified, and he's making notes on these things. I mean, you can be really straightforward, like Brian, I don't know if you've heard this yet, but Scene Queen started teasing one of her new songs.
I saw that. This kind of relates to that too.
Yeah, where she's calling out a specific band that is bleeped out in the song, but we can all kind of figure it out if you're in the pop punk scene, allegedly. But is she though? But she's talking about like, oh, these people who are on your tour bus are under 18 and you're preaching about consent, but then you have bras on there everywhere. And it's very weird that you're doing that. So let's talk about it in a way and bring it on out. And it's actually like addressing it like in a performance piece rather than just like spoken word on the internet.
Yeah. Rather than just a tweet. She did tweet it though. That's actually where I saw it. I went back on Twitter and I saw that. We love Scene Queen here, but she was very clear in everything that she posted about it. People see it on the internet and they believe that this is the majority. So if Scene Queen gets a bunch of comments about it, now we're like, this must be the truth from everybody. This is a random sampling size that speaks a louder narrative about everything else. And that's just objectively not true. Like, this is probably not how anybody else feels. Scene Queen, much like a lot of bands, are still trying to stand out in the field and trying to make the best music of their career so that people pay attention and come through and go to the shows and buy the merch and all that shit. So the idea that like everything that happens on Twitter is not just like performance for the sake of your own attention. There's nothing else besides that. It's just performative narcissism. And fine, do it, but understand that like the internet is not real life in a lot of these cases.
Things that are said online, like sometimes it's like, have you ever worked in a business? Have you ever done anything? Because that's not how most things work.
No, you can't just sit around and be mad all day.
Here's the thing too, if you're so vehemently upset about something, go do something about it. Like go to a protest, start a campaign. I don't know, do something, whatever, I mean, within reason. But like, if it means that much to you, then go do something.
So Scene Queen writes a song, 18 plus. It's about not having children on the bus. And then people start going through her mentions and trying to figure shit out. Like, oh, who is she talking about? Because there's 3 blanks in it. And my first thought is like, yeah, of course you would put 3 blanks in there because everyone's going to try to figure that out. Does that mean that it's about anybody specifically, or is that just for the TikTok?
I mean, the thing is that most people in the scene would probably think it's one particular larger band right now, which makes sense, but it can be applied to a lot of bands. And that's like, I feel like that's also what she's saying.
The way Stan's already mad at me about 18 plus, like that's so wild. I didn't name a band in the song, but the subject matter reminds you of them. And like, I think it's more of a commentary on the fact that we've allowed this shit to happen. Here's another good one. People are combing through my following to see which band the song is about, as if it doesn't apply to 85 of them.
Yeah.
I don't think she's trying to say something about anybody specifically. I think this is like, hey, this applies to a lot of people. You can like understand that like this is the culture that we have cultivated and created here, and we need to challenge it and we need to speak about it. And it's not going to happen if you just fucking tweet about it all day. Tweeting is not praxis. Tweeting is tweeting. That's all it is. I'm very interested in this topic lately, especially being able to separate myself from Twitter enough. Because like when it comes to a lot of this stuff, I feel like people are just trying to insert themselves into a conversation that is not about them and make the topic of the conversation them. And you see it with people who just like make random articles about everything and tweet about everything that has nothing to do with how you actually feel about the topic. If Matty Healy was racist, I don't think we'd be like trying to find moments where he was racist. Like
if he was like blatantly racist and someone's like, look at him being racist, we'd be like, yo, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
End of story. Like there would be nothing more to it. It'd be like, yo, that's fucked up.
But Youngblood called him out for, I guess, the comments on Ice Spice. I guess that was specifically, love listening to three privileged white dudes sit around and objectify a young black female artist who's blowing up. Welcome to your 30s, I guess. Number one, we don't have to keep making this bit about three privileged white dudes like talking shit. It's a podcast. It's assumed. But also, like, Youngblood, hey man, you are also a privileged white dude. So it's a little.
He's a guy who came from Disney.
This is the narcissism thing.
I also don't think Youngblood is 30. I think
he's young, but the other guys are. But this is a younger person trying to say like, oh, when you get old, you just get more shitty. It's like, nah, man. Like this to me reads like every other kid on Twitter who's trying to make the conversation about themselves. Like you say all these things about them, you say what they did was wrong, but you're like still like kind of putting them in this box of saying like, this is why this person is a bad person. And it has to do with they're white, they're privileged, they're making fun of these people, they're in their 30s. And it's like, man, you could just not like it, like what they said. Like this is inserting yourself by using a bunch of things that people say on the internet in order to get the attention and the points. And after doing so, Matty Healy decided to respond. Also, damn, you really did Youngblood bad in this photo. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's really oof.
Like you sandwiched a not great photo of Youngblood between a great photo of Matty Healy and a great photo of Ice Spice. So the first tweet that these are the Instagram stories, but I sent the first one to Lizzie where it's basically like performance art of Youngblood on stage. Which is very, very similar to how the 1975 has been doing their shows lately. And it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that is very similar. And doesn't say anything. It's not, to me, super artistic. It's just like a soft voice playing over a music bed while Youngblood like wanders around stage and whatever. So he like kind of says, hey, my bad. I'm sorry that I did this to everybody, which is funny. And then decides to actually make fun of Youngblood with this video that came after.
Yeah, right, guys, I'm so fucking angry because someone's blown themselves up in the fucking in the Ukraine, and we're not gonna stand for that because we're the fucking children, the fucking underrated youth fucking generation. And that's what we stand for. Well, I don't stand for stuff. I stand against stuff. It's not a particular thing that I stand for. I just stand against stuff, and it tends to be the most morally obvious stuff. You know, like that everyone stands for. Fuck the patriarchy.
When you sent me that, I was so confused because I felt it was out of context. I'm like, I am mixing the whole thing here.
It's the same shit we're talking about. It's like offensive for the sake of being offensive, and you're not going to like him if you don't like it. And if you think it's just funny and performance art, you're going to be like, okay. And then you're going to move on with your goddamn life. But to make this commentary about Youngblood being like, I don't stand for anything, I just stand against all this stuff. It kind of is like my feeling about like a tweet like this is like, this is how everybody else on Twitter is posting and saying the same thing to everybody else. And it's more about like, yeah, I fit in and I'm part of this and I'm part of the in-group that believes this about these types of people. And you're just like sort of against all this stuff, but you're not actually saying anything as like, I want to do something about it. I want to change our culture. I want to change the way that people feel about these sorts of things. I want to provide opportunity for people who want it. It's just talking shit for the sake of talking shit and getting attention on you instead of getting attention on like anything you actually stand for. And I think that Matty Healy kind of, calls that out pretty better. I mean, what's it taking us 20 minutes to do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he has star power to do whatever he wants within, reason, obviously. But because
it'd be offensive if I mocked an accent, though.
A deep indigenous Scottish accent, Brian, it would do you in. It just
don't stand for anything, yeah. All right.
Listen,
well,
Youngblood is fun live, and Brian does agree with that.
It was he put on a phenomenally good show at Riot Fest. Like
he's a great artist. That's the thing. Yeah.
I have no issue with them as artists or whatever. Like, to me now, looking at something like this, it makes me believe, like, you want me to care about you. You don't want me to care about Ice Spice. You want me to care about you being on what you believe to be the right side of the argument here. And, like, who cares? This isn't about you. Why are you putting yourself in this? I'm a fan of the 1975. If you don't like what he said, don't fucking like what he said. But I don't think that he's doing any of it in, like, abject seriousness in a way that, like, hurts any movement or hurts anybody specifically. So I think we can just kind of let this go now. He's a fucking trickster. He's out here.
A trickster.
Yeah,
he is what Brian says is the jonkler.
You cannot understand my twisted head mind.
I hate that so much. I was trying to explain to someone the other day. I was like, the jonkler, and I'm like, nope, I'm talking to the wrong group of friends.
Nope.